Welcome to Safest Truck. Safest Truck is powered by LogRock, the only digital tool built exclusively to help America's trucking companies stay compliant and stand strong when the DOT or lawsuits come knocking at your door.
Everybody, we have with us the great, the legend, John Siedl, truckingwins.com. Our topic today is how to hack your CSA scores. So John, let's get going. Let's jump straight in. First of all, what is a CSA score?
CSA Scores is a database filled with inspections over a 2-year period, right? And crashes over a 3-year period. And those inspections and crashes are weighted. More recent ones hurt you more than ones that are a little bit older. And it takes a while for them to fall off. Who uses CSA Scores? Insurance, right? The government, these nuclear verdicts. I know you had a podcast with that. Attorneys use it against trucking companies, shippers, receivers, and brokers. So they're all looking at CSA scores. And the bottom line is high CSA scores are going to cost you money one way or another.
Thinking about CSA scores, forget all the complexity, forget all the things that you've heard that you didn't quite understand. We're going to make it straightforward for you. And we're going to focus on ways to hack your CSA scores. Now, what do we mean by hack your CSA scores? Of course, John, what is the best way to have good CSA scores?
If you don't get any violations and you don't have any crashes, it does not matter what the formula is for CSA. It doesn't matter how you're analyzing trends and violations. If you just prevent violations at roadside and prevent crashes, who cares how they calculate it? And then you don't even have to challenge any of these roadsides because they're all clean. So what's the best way to hack? Learn the regulations, make your drivers understand them, stress the importance of them, have a good safety culture, and improve your operation, right?
Having said that, it is a process. There are rules, there are regulations, there is an element of, for want of a better term, bureaucracy about this. John, what are the most common mistakes that you see people make? What do you think people should be thinking about? Let's get right into the nitty-gritty.
So we already said prevention's number one, but you know what? Some companies wake up one morning and their CSA scores are a little out of control or a lot out of control, right? So now you have a dilemma. I can do all the training I want, but the database is already filled with problems. All right. So how does CSA work? Well, let's start before we get into something called data queues, where you actually challenge the roadside inspectors, basically saying, you know what, you did something wrong on the inspection, or you use tickets, or you do crash data queues. Before we get into that, which will be in a little while here in this podcast, let's focus on the math behind CSA. There are people that are out there that think, I'll just increase my power units and I'll increase my mileage. And if I just make my company look bigger, then my scores will all go down, like every category. Well, that's not true. Unsafe driving and the crash score, they are connected to power units and mileage. But you just can't put all the mileage and power units you want. There's actually a specific formula where they take the total points divided by your average power unit times something called the utilization factor. And then people are like, well, what's the utilization factor? Again, learning these nuances and learning the playbook of the game to win the game. That's the important part. We go back to like grade school. You got a math problem with a numerator and a denominator. See, I just use those words, numerator, denominator. You take the numerator divided by the denominator and it gives you your measure, and your measure is compared against other truckers, and that's where your score comes from. Some make it feel real complicated, but it's really not. It's that. Now, the other CSA scores, it's number of relevant inspections. All right. So the more inspections you get within a given category, that can reduce your measure because they take the total points divided by the number of relevant inspections, and that drives down your score. But then if you have too many inspections, it might put you in a different peer group where you're being compared against companies that are better, and your score could go up. So it's a delicate balance. Do you want more inspections or don't you?
So are there other aspects of CSA you want to cover, or should we jump over to data queues?
And data queues is simply this. It's a way that you can challenge every roadside inspection and every crash. If you challenge them through the state that issued them and you win that challenge, they will either remove or reduce the severity of how it affects your CSA score. And there's many different ways to do data queue.
When can I or when can I not data queue a crash? Let's go straight in there. Let's help people understand. And this is a good example, right? Let's get specific.
You can challenge a crash that is not your fault, meaning it's non-preventable, by going through the data queue system. And if you win that challenge, it stays in there, but they remove it from the calculation in your score. Now, what's weird about it is there's a PDF file, and you have to know where this PDF file is. You got to know what the criteria is for challenging. And there's a lot of people that are like, this isn't fair. Listen, they changed the program. They have like square pegs to fit into, round peg to fit in round hole. You can't put a square peg in a round hole. So this criteria outlines specific crashes that you can challenge. Even if you don't think it's your fault, but it doesn't fall in those criteria, you can't challenge them. So you get the crash report, you read it, you apply it to this document, you compare the two. If it qualifies, you do a data queue, it's gone, right? So that's one way to challenge crashes. A second way is it even meeting the definition of a DOT crash? Well, if I have the crash report and I'm reading it for the preventability program, why wouldn't I see if it didn't even meet the definition? So you need to go into 49 CFR Part 390, click on accident, and read the definition.
Is there one sweeping broad approach that I can look at this and say, whatever category the ticket's in, whatever section has been hit, I don't necessarily understand the details of that specific category, but I still want to challenge this because it feels to me like I'm right and I want to fight. Is there a way to do that?
Yep. I'll tell you, the last part of CSA score, in the general overview is citation. If you get a citation and you go to court and they dismiss that citation with no court fees, you can do a data queue and they will remove it from your score with no history of it. However, if you get it dismissed with court costs, they're not going to remove it. So if your attorney says, I can get it dismissed, but you got to pay court costs, hey, don't do me no favors. Get it reduced. All right, reduce. So if you get a speeding violation and reduce it to equipment defect, whatever speeding score you get, like 11 to 14 would be 7 points. You get it reduced, it goes to 1 point. So every ticket that's reduced to a lesser charge reduces the severity of the CSA score. So what do I say? Every citation you get that affects any category of CSA, you should be going to court and challenging that.
And we're very grateful, John, for joining, sharing all this with us. And to wrap up, what are we saying? If you're right, fight. I love it.